Welcome to This Week in High School Sports. I'm Teresa Wippel here with my co-host Steve Willits, and can you believe we're back for another year?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like yesterday we were doing this for the first time, and I think we're going into year number 4 now, right?
Year number four.
Wow.
Yeah, hard to believe. Yeah, and we, our sponsor Red Onion Burgers is back. Thank you, Sean Richards, for your support. And we have just a few things to talk about because the truth is it's the day after Labor, or it is Labor Day. I'm a day ahead of myself. But there hasn't been a lot yet going on.
School isn't in yet.
Yeah.
Really, only one sport has actually taken the field to participate against another team, and that's football. And the other teams are starting to just wrap up their preseason practices and getting ready for action this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course they all had their share of challenges in the last few weeks with all the smoke in the air. We had teams that were practicing in the gym and other places.
Yeah, our outdoor sports teams really got hit hard from that. Having to move your tennis practices inside, your football practices, not only because you have the numbers to bring inside with so many players, but they're also then competing with gym space with volleyball and other sports. Swimming teams trying to figure out where they're going to practice because a lot of their practices tend to happen in the gyms as they get ready for the season. And everybody getting shuffled around as folks were trying to fight the poor air quality, which seemed to kind of be at its highest right as the fall sports were starting up and practices were beginning.
That's right. Well, we're done with that for now. The air is clear, and we're going to talk about football, right?
We are going to talk about football. A little bit of a rough weekend for the Edmonds School District schools. All 4 of our teams in action. All 4 of our teams, unfortunately, coming up on the losing end. One team, though, that had an outstanding effort, at least I thought they did anyway. I caught the second half of their game. Meadowdale losing to Inglemore over at Pop Keeney Stadium in Bothell. Final score 29-28. Meadowdale giving up a 40-yard touchdown pass with 17 seconds left. That brought Inglemore within 1, and then they went for the 2-point conversion and converted it. Meadowdale still had a chance to win it on the final play of the game, a pass into the end zone that was batted down. So the Mavericks not getting the victory, but certainly we saw glimpses of what could be this year, and I think Matt Leonard and his coaching staff have a lot to build on, a lot to look forward to, and a young team at that, a lot of juniors this year. So congratulations to them. And then one other team we want to talk about right now too, the Mountlake Terrace Hawks. And we're going to talk about them because even though it's Labor Day weekend, their head coach, Kelly Dougan, was generous enough to come in and join us to talk not only about their loss to Mercer Island over the weekend, but also to help us preview the upcoming Hawks season and what we have to look forward to from their team. Here's the interview we did with Kelly Dougan. The high school football season kicked off this past weekend, and joining us right now, the head football coach for the Mountlake Terrace Hawks, Kelly Dougan.
Hey, Steve.
Coach, thanks for joining us today. I know it's not easy on the Labor Day weekend going back to school, and it's never easy coming in after a rough defeat, so we appreciate having you being here. Mercer Island, 28-6 game on Friday nights. A 3A team from the Kingco Conference. You always know you're going to get a tough effort from a team like that. I guess takeaways from that game in general, and maybe we can start off by talking about some positive things. What were some of the things you liked from the game?
Yeah, we're always going to try and find the positives, no matter what. Probably the biggest thing was our guys just didn't quit at all. When things were going wrong, when it looked pretty bad at times, they just kept battling, and they fought hard for 4 quarters, and they finished strong, and, even in the fourth quarter with about 8 minutes left, we were still alive. We scored. At that time, we were down 21-0, but we put the ball in the end zone, and we had an opportunity to kick it on sides, and it didn't go so well for us at that point. But hey, the ball bounces a little differently there, and we get the ball back, and so they fought hard, and so that's all you can ask, from the guys. And
I've got to think during first game of the year, I don't want to call it a preseason game, but it's a non-conference game. There's a reason why schools like to put non-conference games on their schedules at the beginning because you've got some things to work through. There's jitters, right? Some of these guys playing Friday Night Lights for the first time.
Yeah.
In terms of just the psyche of the team and how it looked from a mental standpoint, how'd you feel about the guys? Did you feel like they were ready to go and that they maybe got this one out of their system and are ready to move on for the season?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of penalties, both sides of the ball, so that really obviously slows you down. We played a lot of sophomores, and for all those guys, first time they'd ever been on the field on a Friday night, and so there was definitely some nerves there, and even from our seniors. You could tell before the game started, during warm-up, some of the guys were pretty nervous. So it definitely helps, and we knew Mercer Island was going to be stiff competition for us. But I wanted us to play somebody good, right? Like, we don't want to have easy games, lesser competition. We want to challenge ourselves and see what we're made of. And Mercer Island definitely put us to the test.
Sometimes those tougher games, even if it means taking a loss early in the season, that can equate to victories maybe later on down the road when you're battle tested.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
So as far as some of the things you need to work on, you just reflected on the penalty situation a moment ago, but just in general, what were some of the other things that you took away from this game that maybe we're going to see in practice this week?
Yeah, so offensively, we had some bright moments during the game, and that's when we were patient. It's when we were taking what the defense was giving us and, minimizing mistakes. And so there was glimmers in the game that we know we can grow from and expand on. So we're going to be seeing a very similar defense this coming week. So that's a positive. We can just pretty much similar game plan with tweaks, of course. But really, for me and our offensive coordinator, Jack Hand, we have to be more patient. We have to take what the defense has given us and can't be looking for the big play. So we're going to really focus on that today.
Okay, great.
The rest of the week. Defensively, we actually played pretty good at times. We got quite a few stops when it mattered, in the third and fourth quarter. And again, a bunch of young guys. So we have to work on being in the right place, aligning properly every play and filling our gaps and, just sticking to your assignments and trusting your teammates. And so that's stuff that'll come with repetition and with experience.
Great. And as far as looking at some of the personnel, let's kind of preview the team as it stands right now. We'll start off with the offensive side of the ball. I know having a veteran quarterback certainly doesn't hurt, and Jesse James Martineau has plenty of experience over the last couple of years.
Yeah, you bet. So it's super nice going into a season with a guy who's got 14 games under his belt, and he didn't play his best this last week, but we expect more from him, and he's going to get better, and he's going to get in sync with the game plan and the play calls and his receivers. And so, he's solid there. A couple of our sophomores really kind of shined quite a bit on Friday, and that was Jordan Sims and Elijah Dahlman. Real good players, and we're excited about what they're going to bring to the table for us. Of course, Brandon Bach, real dynamic receiver, and he had 3 catches out of 9 attempts. We're going to improve on that, certainly, and that's partly the play calling, and that's partly the patience thing. There's opportunities, and when the opportunity presents itself, we've got to hit him. And then Dom Latham played a nice game as well, and he's a receiver running back for us. And so we got some guys, for sure.
How about the guys up front in the trenches? Who are we looking at this year?
Well, kind of one of the more exciting guys is Noah Thompson. He's just a huge kid. He's a junior, and he's did some things for us. He's strong and he's big. We've got a bunch of seniors on our O-line, but a few of them are just still kind of learning what it's like to be an offensive lineman. They've been plugged in there during June and August, and that's J.P. McIntosh and Nathan Fox. And so those guys were like 3-back, fullback guys for us that we moved them into guard. But they're coming along. We'll get some guys back this week that can play on the line for us as well. So we'll be improving there. And we got a sophomore that we like as well that we're going to get him involved too.
And then on the defensive side, what are we looking at? I'm guessing a lot of the same names probably, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same guys. Dom and Brandon are out there, of course, every play. Lane Zushin plays a lot for us. He's really kind of our utility guy on both sides of the ball. He backs up 4 positions on both sides of the ball. But he started.
And another kid with a lot of experience, too.
Yep, a lot of experience. He's gritty. He's tough. Our D-line, we had some nice play from our rush end. Jay Nath, he's also a sophomore. Noah Thompson, again, was pretty good. He had 2 sacks, I think, in the game. And again, we get 3 guys this week that we didn't have available to us on Friday, and they're all very good defensive players. And so plugging them in is going to give us a whole new look going into the Ingram game.
Yeah, always one of those challenges at the beginning of a high school football season because these players have to have so many practices in before they can actually get on the field, and with family vacations and other things going on in August, it does present some challenges that maybe other folks don't think about, correct?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have 14 days to get 12 practices in. And if something pops up, and it's usually a family situation, and it doesn't take much, and then the kid has to sit. So we had that happen to us with a few of our guys.
Sure. So hopefully we'll get those guys back on the field here shortly.
Yep.
Speaking of early season and practices, you guys, along with all the other schools in this area, went through some challenges that you're not accustomed to. We had poor air quality conditions early in the season here, and therefore a lot of teams, I know from talking to other coaches, had to move their practices indoors. Not exactly ideal when you're trying to condition football players for a season.
Yeah.
How did the air quality affect your team? What did you guys do during that time? And have you noticed it in terms of their condition early in the season?
Yeah, we ended up practicing inside 3 days, and 2 of those 3 days we were in real confined quarters because volleyball took priority. So, you know, we did a lot of conditioning, we did a lot of whiteboarding, we did a lot of walkthrough stuff. We felt like we had 3 productive practices, but we're limited in what we can do. You know, it really hurt us with special teams. You can't really do much there. You can't do much with the passing game. So it was a lot of emphasis on the run game and just trying to stay in shape.
Sure.
So it worked out okay.
And again, not an excuse because every other team went through the same situation,
exactly.
I guess. But
yeah.
New conference this year for football. Mountlake Terrace obviously staying in Wesco for other sports, but because of the 2A classification for Mountlake Terrace, and with Archbishop Murphy and Cedar Crest also popping over, the 3 of you heading up north to play in the Northwest Conference for the football season. And we should point out it's divided into 2 divisions this year. So you're in a division with Anacortes, Bellingham, Blaine, Cedar Crest, and Seaholm. Kind of the unknown too, because really, you know, year in and year out, now that you're in your 4th year, you start to get to know the tendencies of the Edmonds Woodways and the Meadowdales and Linwoods. You've got a whole new set of teams to learn now, and they have to learn you as well.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about this division? Are you guys excited about it?
Yeah, we're definitely excited about it. You know, I've been involved in the process. Meetings with athletic directors and coaches from those schools, and so that's all been a real positive. They're all real good guys, very organized, you know, professional. So we're looking forward to playing new football teams. I mean, you got to look at it that way, right? We've played Seaholm, we've played Cedar Crest, and we're familiar with them. But you know, the other ones, the Anacortes, the Blaines, the Bellinghams, those are all new to us. We've got no idea what they do. So every week will be a challenge. It's not going back to what did we do last year or the year before. It's going to be a fresh analysis of what our opponent looks like and installing our game plans.
And the pro of this is that you're now playing schools that are like similar size. I mean,
right.
You were a 2A school and a 3A conference playing schools that were much bigger in terms of enrollment numbers and consequently bigger numbers in terms of football turnout. So are you expecting to see more of looking across the sideline from you and seeing teams with more of similar numbers to what you guys are looking at?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some of these programs are pretty strong, so I expect that they will have pretty good numbers. But, yeah, for the most part, over the last few years, we're looking across the sideline at twice as many kids as we have, and so it should be similar. And, you know, similar athletes, too, we'd expect, so.
Well, we should also note, a lot of people were, one of the drawbacks is that there's a tendency to think that you guys are going to be traveling a lot more. And really, when you start to look at your schedule, there are a couple of trips up north, but really, because of the way that they've scheduled this and given you an opportunity to put together your own non-conference schedules, you guys aren't really traveling that much, right? It's not...
Nope, not much at all. Now, this year, Anacortes and Blaine are coming down here, so that means next year we're going up there.
Yeah.
So those will be 2 pretty significant trips. But the Bellingham, it's not that bad. You know, going over to Cedar Crest, also we've done that. So it's not too big of a deal. I mean, we're talking about an hour, maybe a little more on a bus ride, so no biggie.
And I think the one thing that jumped out at a lot of folks when they looked at your schedule for the first time, I think many people were expecting to see your non-conference games include 2 or 3 of the other Edmonds School District teams. You guys elected to take them off the schedule entirely. Pros and cons to that, and maybe what was the thought that went into putting together the schedule?
For me, I didn't want to be picking and choosing between, you know, the 3 Edmonds School District opponents or the 2 schools in Shoreline that we typically play. So I just said I'd prefer just to wipe it clean 2 years without, you know, those as our opponents, and then we'll see what happens in, 2020? When we
Reevaluate,
classified and see where we're at. But we do play all the schools, the familiar faces at our C team level, so we'll still have contact with them, and
It's great for those younger guys who are used to playing with a lot of the Linwood, Meadowdale, Edmonds, Woodway guys at the lower levels too, or the younger levels, I should say. And now finally, game this coming weekend, your first road game of the season. You're traveling over to Ingram, 7 o'clock start time on Friday. I know it's early in the week, but what do we know about Ingram so far?
Yeah, so we've exchanged film with them and spent plenty of time over the weekend watching it. They look pretty good. They had a good game. They beat Highline on Friday. They've got big, athletic football players. They have a strong running game, a couple running backs that are fast and run downhill with a lot of authority. And so we expect them to be definitely a difficult opponent. I think they've got a good thing going at Ingram. I'm friends with coach over there, become friends with him over the last year and a half or so, and he's in school, he's a PE teacher, he's well-liked, and you can see that reflected in the number of kids on their sideline. They had quite a few guys.
And a question, this will be news to me too, because I didn't get a chance to ask you off camera. I know your coaching staff and the Ingram coaching staff, they tend to hang out at the same restaurant after games on Friday nights and often share notes and whatnot. Did you run into the guys from Ingram this weekend? And if so, what were the conversations like? Because now you have to kind of mask certain
pretty
things.
Brief. Right? They were there. They were excited, celebrating, having a good time. Walked in, congratulated them. Told Zach I'd get film over to him first thing in the morning, and then I said, and we'll be friends again in about 10 days. And he said, perfect, yep.
So there we go.
That
Big game, big game coming up again. So non-conference game, 7 p.m. start time over at Ingram, not too far away, so the folks in the Mountlake Terrace area should be able to make that trip. Again, Kelly, thank you so much for coming in today.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, and we wish the Hawks nothing but success this year.
Yeah, thanks a bunch. Appreciate it. My pleasure.
Well, it's always good to hear from Kelly. I can't believe he's been there 4 years. You and I were just talking about that.
It doesn't seem like it, does it? And, Kelly Dougan's one of those people who is just such a fixture in the Mountlake Terrace community, not only as a business owner and as a community activist, but with the football programs. He was the youth football coach, or not only the youth football coach, but he ran the MTYAA youth football program there for, I think, 15 years. So certainly a lot of the kids that are playing for him right now grew up with him. But it seems like just yesterday he was taking over this program, and now here we are in year number 4. It does fly.
Yes, it does. Well, and we have a lot of other sports to talk about. Not so many that have played any games yet, but you can do some brief summaries of where we are, right?
Yeah, we need to talk about it because the fall sports seasons, other than football, all kick off this week. Some pun intended there, because one of them that's kicking off is, in fact, girls soccer. That's coming up right around the corner. Girls volleyball, boys tennis, girls swimming, and then cross country for both boys and girls. And oh, by the way, the Seattle Times came out with their rankings this week of the top 10 programs for boys and girls in the state. Edmonds Woodway ranked number 2 in the state for both boys cross country at the 3A level and girls cross country. So not a big shocker there.
No.
The Warriors always seem to have a plethora of runners that can compete at the state level, and it sounds like this year's going to be no different. So I'm sure we'll be talking Warriors cross country throughout the year, amongst the other teams and other schools as well. And then we need to talk a little more about Mountlake Terrace High School, because Doug Petrowski came into studio earlier. Doug, obviously somebody you've known for a very long time, has covered sports for MLTnews.com and is a fixture around the Mountlake Terrace High School sports community. He's already written 2 previews this year for MLT News, so we're going to talk to him about those previews that he wrote for girls soccer and girls volleyball, as well as the other Mountlake Terrace fall sports coming up. Here's the interview we did with Doug Petrowski. We go from the gridiron to talking about the other Mountlake Terrace High School fall sports. And joining us right now from MLTnews.com, Doug Petrowski. Doug, fall sports, it doesn't always necessarily mean Friday night lights on the football field. There's plenty of other sports to talk about. And I know you've covered a number of these teams over the years. Want to start off by talking about 2 of the teams that you've written about this week for MLT News. And why don't we start off by talking girls soccer? Alvin Little, once again, back at the helm, and it sounds like he's got some good things going on over there.
Yeah, Alvin's back for his 3rd year, heading up the girls' soccer program, and it'll be a rebuilding year. He lost some key seniors from last year, but there's also some excitement on the pitch.
And I was looking at the schedule here earlier, as well as the roster. It looks like a fairly young team. I'm noticing a lot of number 9s down the year here. Am I looking at this correctly? It looks like he has 8 freshmen playing on the varsity squad.
Yeah, that's the rebuilding year. But they're important freshmen. We can start at the very back with goaltender. The goaltender is going to be a freshman this year. Her name is Veronica Roten. But Coach Little is excited about having her. She's been playing goalkeeper at the club level and will be a good addition to this team.
And it sounds like he gets a couple of players back that he's had in the past that maybe didn't play last year for one reason or another.
Yes, Maddie McAllister will be a senior this year. She was injured all last year. She is back with the team. He calls her the junkyard dog. Will play mostly midfield, but can play a number of different positions, so we'll see her all over the place. Also, Lauren Allen is a senior this year. She is back after a 2-year absence. She's told me that after years of club soccer, she just got burned out, and she needed a break. She played freshman year, played varsity at Terrace. Hasn't played the last 2 years, wanted to come back, play for her school, so she's back. She'll play a lot of midfield, but you'll see her up on the front line also. She's good friends with Abby Johnson, and that's probably where we should start with this team.
4-year player, right?
4-year player, senior, will mostly play defense, but will play a little bit in midfield also. Coach Little calls her the queen. She's looked up to on the team, team captain. She is the inspirational leader of the team. You will see a lot of Abby Johnson this year.
And being that we now have 2 additional teams into Wesco with Cedar Crest and Archbishop Murphy joining, from what I can tell by looking at the schedule here, not a lot of non-conference games. In fact, we jump right into conference play, it looks like, on Tuesday night this week. Team's heading up to Marysville-Pilchuck, and then, 3 games in 5 nights?
Yeah, the team will be busy this week with the road game starting on Tuesday, and then 2 more this week, playing a Saturday game up in Cedar-Woolley. So if you want to make a road trip, get up there and see the Cubs and the Hawks playing. Cedar Crest is a formidable addition to the league. They were a state playoff team from last year for 2A. And just a quirk in the schedule, the Terrace will play them after playing Edmonds Woodway and Shorewood, which were both 3A state teams last year. So 3 in a row against state playoff teams. That stretch will be in October.
So what you're saying is a already tough Wesco conference just got a little bit tougher.
Oh, yeah.
It's always been tough for soccer. I mean, we've always put out some very good teams around this area.
Tough physical league. Terrace is a 2A school, struggles a little bit in league play, but has made district playoffs the last couple of years. We'll see if Little can lead them to the playoffs again this year.
And we should also point out, we just talked about 2 of the road games this week. If anybody wants to catch the Hawks, you can do so on Thursday if you don't want to travel quite as far. 7:30 game Thursday night against Marysville-Getchell over at Linwood High School, which often serves as the Mountlake Terrace home field. So it sounds like a lot going on for the soccer team. Another preview article you wrote recently was for the volleyball team, a team that gets a new coach this year.
Yeah, it'll be almost starting over with volleyball this year, starting at the top. Chrissy Kane is the new coach. Not necessarily new to Terrace. She was the C team coach 2 years ago. She was the JV coach last year. So moves up to varsity coach this year as some of the players are moving up also. So there's some connection there also. Not necessarily new to soccer and to coaching. She was an assistant coach for years down at her alma mater in Oregon, in Beaverton.
I think it's Southridge, right?
Southridge in Beaverton, that's right. And so she knows coaching, and she'll get to prove herself at the varsity level now.
And much like the soccer team, as we look at the volleyball roster here, not any freshmen on the team, on the varsity squad, but certainly not a lot of seniors either. Only 3 seniors listed on this varsity squad, so it sounds like she's got something to build with there a little too.
Yeah, and bring a roster when you come to this, because there's, of the 7 varsity players, 7 of them, of the 10 varsity players, 7 of them have a first name that starts with K, in addition to the coach, which is Chrissy. So you're going to get a little confused out there. I certainly am. But Coach Kane is excited about this group. They're bonding well together, and she thinks that there's going to be some excitement on on the court, it starts with the defense. She says the defense is going to be strong. They've got a number of liberos that will be back playing. Kaylin Heineck is a senior. She'll get a lot of action onto the court. Isabel Ong, a junior, will play quite a bit. Caitlin Scott, just a sophomore, but you'll see her on the court too. Anchoring that defensive line, Coach Kane says that's going to be the strength of this team.
Okay, very good. And we look at their schedule, and it looks like they kick off also up at Marysville. They're going to be playing Marysville-Getchell on Thursday, and then they come home the following Tuesday against Everett, and a lot of exciting action there too. Another league, Wesco girls volleyball, that tends to produce some quality opponents every year.
Yeah, and Terrace will be tested in Wesco, but hopefully they will grab another district playoff spot at the 2A level. They've been the districts 2 years in a row, so they're going to shoot for 3 in a row.
And again, we've got other sports going on too. We'll just kind of go through these briefly. I know we haven't even started the school year yet, so in some cases, you either haven't talked to the coach this year, or in one case, haven't talked to the coach at all, brand new coach. So let's just kind of go down the list and see what you do know so far. Boys tennis. Alberto back at the helm.
Yeah, Alberto is back for his 11th season. Now, he's hinting that this is his last one. I've heard him say that before.
I was just going to say that. I think you mentioned that once or twice.
So we'll see about that. But, yeah, he's a mainstay there on the tennis courts. He's excited about his top 2 players, Alex Ung and Mark Primavera. They're going to be battling out to see who's going to be the #1 singles player this year. He hinted that there's going to be times where they're going to flip-flop back and forth. Roberto handles it by having them play each other at practices. They call them challenge matches, and the #2 can challenge the #1 at any time, and they slug it out on the court. And whoever wins ends up being the #1 singles player for the next match.
And we've heard both those names in the past, so these are 2 experienced players, right?
Yes, they have. Alex has played, I think this is his 4th year playing varsity tennis. So I'd have to check my notes on that. And Mark played a lot last year. Mark played a lot of singles last year. So yeah, those will be the 2 to watch on the tennis courts.
And on Tuesday, they'll be hosting Archbishop Murphy. So not a lot of time for them to get ready to go to school and acclimated to the courts. They're just going to jump right out there and start playing. They've got, matter of fact, weather permitting, 3 matches in over a 4-day period this week.
Yeah, and they're excited to be out on the courts as opposed to playing in the gym when the air quality was poor and that the district was requiring all practices to be inside. So yeah, they're excited to be out on the courts and to get the season going.
Yeah, gyms are good for badminton and pickleball, not so much for tennis. So happy to have those guys outside. Girls swimming. What do we know about them yet, or are we still learning who the Hawks are this year?
Girls swimming, they had a strong season last year. They sent 6 to the state tournament, or to the state meet last fall. Rebecca Cartwright is the coach, back for her 2nd full year as head coach. And I know they have a big group, a big turnout. I have not met any of the swimmers. I was at the high school one day when they were practicing. Swimming is difficult during practices because all 4 Edmond School District swim teams practice at Linwood Pool. Access to that is limited, so a school can only practice every other day. I was up at the high school during the poor air quality days and saw the swim team running laps through the hallways.
That's one way to do it.
Run the first floor, go down the stairs, run the 2nd floor, up the stairs, and Coach Cartwright had them running laps. So they'll be ready.
And I suppose if you're a transfer into the school or a freshman, it's a good way to get to know your school a little bit better too before you start. So perhaps that helps in some way, shape, or form. Sure. Swimming team, by the way, over at Kamiak on Thursday, along with all 3 of the other Edmond School District schools, amongst other schools, partaking in a jamboree. And then I don't think their first meet is for a couple weeks after that. So they're going to slowly work their way into that.
Start out against Kamiak, and that's one of the powerhouses in the state. So they'll be tested right away.
You know you're a pretty good swim program when you have your own swimming pool at your school, which is very uncharacteristic in this day and age. And then finally, the cross-country teams, boys and girls. New coach this year, Todd Weber. Yes. No longer at the helm.
Joel Pearson is the new head coach. Haven't met him yet. Looking forward to. He's got a strong resume, done quite a bit of coaching, does some personal coaching. Coaches a lot up in Whatcom County,
Okay.
community college level, a number of the high schools up there, including one of them, Linden, which is a very strong cross country. He's done some coaching at the higher college levels also. So I'm looking forward to meeting him and meeting some of the runners. Some of them qualified for state last year, so we'll see if we can get them qualified again this year. Their season doesn't start until next week, Thursday the 13th, so we got some time.
Okay, and a Mountlake Terrace program that's put out quite a few quality runners over the years, both on the boys and girls sides of things, so it'll be fun to see what they can do. And then we'd be remiss if we don't mention this next one, right? We just talked about all the sports. Got to shift our attention back to football for one moment. And I know as a Mountlake Terrace alum, a proud moment for me, Devontae Downs making the Minnesota Vikings roster. I believe that is the first NFL football player to ever come out of Mountlake Terrace High School. Kind of a big deal. You and I have both covered many of Devontae's games back in his high school days. You never know. It's not that easy to make the NFL, but we certainly saw glimpses during his high school career that maybe he could be very special and take it to the next level. And here we are in 2018, and here he goes.
Devontae, 2014 graduate, but didn't play his senior year because of his torn ACL. But we saw his junior year, led the Hawks to some playoff games. Had a stellar career down at the University of California. Was injured halfway through last year, so he missed some of his senior year there also. But the Vikings saw enough in him to draft him, 7th round draft pick, survived training camp, and you'll see Devontae wearing number 57 for the Vikings this year. And hopefully he'll still be on that roster when the Vikings make their trip to Seattle in December for Monday Night Football.
And I know a lot of us in the Pacific Northwest, myself included, we're big Seattle Seahawks fans. But it wouldn't be a bad consolation if we saw one of our own maybe make it to the playoffs this year. I know a lot of the experts, if you will, on the pro football scene seem to think that the Vikings might make a run at the Super Bowl this year. So for Devontae to make that particular team, quite the accomplishment.
Go Vikings, right?
go Seahawks,
Okay.
Go Vikings, go Devontae.
Yes.
Well, we'll be rooting for number 57, and who knows, perhaps we'll see a few purple 57 jerseys around town now that we've got one of our own in the NFL. So congratulations to Devontae and his family as well on that accomplishment. Doug, it should be a fun year. I know we should also point out you're going to be covering various sports for MLT News all year long. It's not just the fall. Do you get excited for this job this time of year? I've got to think a lot going on. It keeps you occupied, but it's a lot of fun, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's a lot of fun to see these student athletes go at it, and I'm looking forward to a good season. I think football is going to be very good, and the other sports will be competitive this fall. Terrace Athletics had a good year last year. Basketball, boys basketball went to state. Boys baseball went to the state championship game.
They did.
Then all the athletes that qualified for individual sports to state. We're going to see if we can do that again this year.
It should be fun. So again, we appreciate you for all that you do for coverage for our community and our area, and thank you. And if you want to read Doug's work, MLTnews.com all year. I was going to say all season long, but really all year long. Doug Petrowski, thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Steve.
And we will see you at a sporting event, I'm sure, very soon. Go Hawks.
Well, it's always good to hear from Doug. I am so grateful for all the work he does for us, and obviously knows sports not just as well as you do.
Oh, I think in some ways he knows it a lot better than I do. The way he's covered these teams throughout the years, and I mean, sports that don't always get as much recognition in bigger newspapers. Doug's done a nice job of putting a spotlight on some of our local athletes and teams, and certainly appreciate all that he does.
Yeah, and he's really passionate about making sure that the kids get the coverage, which is what we're all about too.
Absolutely.
So
it does it in a positive light. It's been great to
it's all
follow
good.
it.
All right, so we have a lot coming up for the next year or 9 months, but we also want to mention that we will be doing our Athlete of the Week T-shirts and awards recognitions when we start next week.
I'm looking forward to that. I always say a male and female athlete of the week each week. Yep,
that's right. And sponsored again this year by Action Jackson Plumbing, so we thank them for their support. And we'll be back next week. What do we have coming up for this week that you want to highlight? Anything?
We have a lot more to cover. I mean, obviously, some of these teams are, as we mentioned in the interview with Doug, just getting going this week. So, again, there's a swim jamboree coming up this week. A lot of tennis teams in action.
Right.
Many of the tennis teams playing 2 or 3 matches. they like to front load their schedules because of the fact that if there are rain delays or makeup matches, they want to be able to fix those in or fit those in later on down the road. So some of these teams are really going to be busy this week. We have a doubleheader of football over at Edmonds Stadium this Friday night. Shorecrest is playing Edmonds Woodway at 5 o'clock, and then Linwood is hosting Everett at 8 o'clock. We've already talked about Mountlake Terrace's game at Ingram, and then we've got Meadowdale over at Shoreline Stadium at 7 p.m. on Friday night playing Shorewood. So there will be plenty to talk about next week at this time, and hopefully we'll be able to start working in other sports and finding out who some of our top contenders are going to be this year.
Very good. I'm looking forward to another fun year, and we're really glad that you came along to join us, and we will see you all next week.